No
Over to
pressure.
you, Liz, and we'll come back and see you at the question time.
Yeah, see you in a bit.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. My name is Liz Daniels. We're going to look at perfect plaiting. Is there such a thing? I think the picture on the right is pretty perfect, and I have to say that is not my picture. That belongs to Nikki Baxter from Baxter Equine Services, who does amazing plaiting. But tonight we're going to share how we can get to as near as perfect as we can. So a little bit about me. I can move my slides. My screen has been very slow today. It does not want to move. There we go, we'll use those instead. So I am a former professional groom, hence why I'm here talking to you guys. I've worked in quite a few different yards, worked quite a lot being efficient and having to plait lots of horses and ponies very quickly. We run an equity online, which is an educational platform. I work for Riders Minds, which is a mental health and well-being website and charity, and has a phone line. So if you're not familiar with that, then please go and check that out. We also run equity and confidence camps, which are residential camps for adults up in Scotland. As it says, I live in Scotland with my crazy family, lots of horses, dog, cat, chinchilla, actually 3 cats, chinchilla. It's all a bit crazy. But for me, it's all about having fun. And that's really what your horses should be about, is having fun. So if you've got any questions as we're going along, you can pop them in the chat, or there is an opportunity to ask them at the end as well. So starting, why do we plait? I absolutely love this photo because it kind of resembles me sometimes when I wake up in the morning, a little bit scary. I actually had to Google this, and I quite enjoyed doing a little bit of research, but it stemmed from when horses were used in the military for soldiers, and the manes got caught up in the weapons, and then that obviously led to problems. So that's why we started to plait many years ago. And also then for the work horses, for those that were working on the farm, so the Shires and the Clydesdales, it was to stop them getting tangled in any kind of machinery and things like that. And they found very quickly that plaiting the hair also preserves the quality of the mane. So that is why we started to plait. Obviously, as time's moved on, it's changed. So the tradition continued into the hunting field, which is where the traditional bull plaits come from. So the running plaits started initially, and then the traditional bull plaits came in, which again, it was to stop anything getting tangled, such as the reins or hedges and trees and things like that. But really for a safety kind of point of view, and obviously to look a little bit smart as well. So we'll have a look. So why plait now? In modern day, we still have the running plaits, such as this one here in the horse. That is to basically, if you've ever ridden a traditional, you'll know that there's quite a lot of hair and it gets in the way. So we want to get that out of the way of the reins, and it helps to keep them a little bit cooler as well. But for most of us, and that's what we're going to be focusing on tonight, we plait for cosmetic reasons, to show off and enhance the neck in a competition environment. So basically we want them to look smart and look nice. Not everyone plaits, of course. For dressage, even at BD, it's not compulsory, but I think everyone thinks that we should plait. In eventing, again, it's not compulsory, but everyone tends to plait for the dressage phase, and then some people leave them in, some people take them out. The show jumpers are a little less dedicated, shall we say, in their plaiting. Some plait, some don't. It just comes down to a choice. And showing obviously would be an area that we would plait for unless we were showing a traditional or a native. So we'll have a look here. Where to start? We've got 1 or 2 slides on this, but this is the most important slide of the whole presentation. Really, is thinking ahead and preparation. And by that we mean having the right length of mane for the plaits that you want to achieve. We'll look at different styles of plaits in a bit, and the length really depends on the thickness as well of the mane, and whether you pull or whether you humanely trim, or you know, kind of whatever you decide to do. Make sure the mane is clean, otherwise if not you get all those scurfy bits that you can see. But don't wash it the day before. It's really useful to wash it a good few days before, otherwise it's a little bit fly away, and it's quite hard not to have little wispy bits that come out the side as well. And obviously don't put any conditioner or like anything shiny in it, otherwise it's an absolute nightmare. So if you know you've got a competition coming up, it's really good practice just to, even when you're washing them off the week before, just to give it a really good scrub, so that it's not dirty, but it's not too slippery as well. We don't want a slippery mane there. So what tools do we need? Good question. A pulling comb is my personal go-to kind of tool of choice, just for separating the hair. It depends if you want to plait with bands or thread. So we've got lots of choices now. We've got the traditional bands, which are rubber, or we've got the silicone ones, which they're slightly flatter and thicker, and they don't break quite as easily, which is good. But I think, I don't know, at the moment I'm using the silicone ones, but I don't know that I like them as much. Maybe I'm just old-fashioned, I don't know. We've got lots of different styles of thread as well now for plaiting, and we've got wax coated thread, which is so much easier to use than the traditional. It's basically just a thick cotton, so it has a coating of wax on it, which just helps to keep the plaits in place, and it's so much easier to use. Loads of products on the market now. We've got here Smart Grooming, because they will give you a discount code at the end, which they're very kindly supplied. But there are lots and lots of products on the market. I actually tend to plait most of the time with just water. So I have like a dandy brush in a bucket and just use that with water. And if you are plaiting with needles, make sure they've got round ends on, which I know sounds a bit obvious, but I have seen people trying to plait with like sharp pointy needles, and it doesn't always work so well. And if you are plaiting with thread, you'll need a pick to undo it all as well. If you use scissors, it tends to cut half the mane away, which is not ideal for when you're plaiting the next time. So lots of tools, but just do research to whatever you want to and feel comfortable using with that. So what length? This is a question I get asked a lot, and it really depends on the plaits that you want to achieve, and also the thickness of mane. The absolute perfect mane would be the same length and thickness throughout, but we all know that is really, really tricky to achieve. So if you guys have got horses like mine, they'll probably be a little bit thinner at the top, really thick in the middle. And at the moment, my horse, as we'll see on another slide, is missing half of her mane, which I'd just like to say she came to me like that, but I just cannot get it to grow. So, but it's not uncommon for them to be really wispy. So if we can use the range of tools, and we've done this on a previous slide, a previous talk that you'll be able to have a look at trimming and things. So I would say utilize the range of tools such as thinning scissors and the rakes and a pulling comb to help you achieve that. So it really, really is so key to get your mane as okay as you can before you start plaiting, and it makes a massive difference to the quality of your plaits. But I do appreciate that I'm saying that it is quite hard. I do know that that it's hard, so we just have to work with what we've got, which is fine. So section 1, so we've got a nice clean mane which we've not washed. If you don't have time to wash it the day or a few days before, then you're better to wash it and plait with your mane wet rather than letting it dry and then plait. So we're going to use the pulling comb to split the mane into sections, and we want to try and make the sections as even as we possibly can. But if you can't, if you've got a combination mane and it's thicker at in the middle than it is at the bottom, make the ones in the middle, so along the crest, a little bit narrower than the ones at the top. So you're trying to aim for the same amount of thickness in each section, because that will make every plait as even as possible. And when you use the comb, use it going down in a straight line to get a nice straight line in between each section, because then when you've finished your plaiting, it looks really smart and quite uniform. So spend a little bit of time doing this. We'll talk about how many plaits in a moment, but it's good to get this bit right. So you can do this bit with the mane dry. The horse can be eaten. I'm a great believer in letting them munch away while you're kind of having a faff around to keep them as quiet as possible, because you can still do all this when they're, you know, got a slight head movement. That's not a problem. So the next step is what we call plaiting down. Here we've got a photo and you can see that we've got some wax or gel on there. And what we're doing is we normally start either at the top or the bottom. I personally start at the top. This lady who we did a photo shoot with a while ago, she started at the bottom. It really is preference. She starts at the bottom so she can put any excess hair into the forelock, which is absolutely like spot on. That's absolutely fine. I start at the top because I think the more the horse, the longer they stand, the more they get annoyed and the more they shake their head. So I'd rather start at the top and the bit that's more likely to move than the bottom. But it really makes no difference when you're doing ball plaits, and when we do scallop plaits, we'll talk about these later, it does matter. But start either end. I always put the bands around my fingers, the plaiting bands, so that you've got them ready to use, so you're not trying to hold some mane and fish some out of your pocket and then you pull out a tissue or a horse treat, or so just put them on your fingers when you're plaiting as well. And either use water or use a product. It doesn't really matter which. I've never used hair gel, but I'm guessing you probably, as long as it didn't get actually like onto the skin, I'm guessing you could just probably use hair gel if you don't have any plaiting gel to hand. But obviously with your discount code, I'm sure you'll be all shopping at Smart Grooming anyway. Intention is the key to neat plaits. What we don't want is it to be too tight where the hair meets the neck, because we don't want it pulling and being uncomfortable for the horse. So those ladies that have got or had longish hair or hair that's of a length where you can plait, there is nothing worse than your hair. I can't stand it being too tight. So what we want is the plait to be firm enough that it's not going to come out at the top, but not too tight that it's actually pulling any hairs out, because especially for mares, they tend to be more sensitive. We really don't want to aggravate them, and when we're riding them, of course, we want them to stretch the neck and elongate the neck, and if it's sore, they're probably not going to do that, so just bear that in mind. But once you've done your first couple of turns, then start to plait as tight as you can, so it's nice and firm and tight at the bottom. And I plait, you can plait over, like in this picture, so I always start with the right hand side, so plait the right hand side, then the left hand side, and then the middle, and come over. But you can do it the other way around, so you get your plaits like underneath, which we'll look at the moment. And once you've plaited all the way down, then we're talking about bands plaits at the moment, then pop a band in to keep that nice and secure. So the ends here, you can see how much should you leave. Again, it depends on how much hair they've got. If you've got a mane that's quite bushy and then wispy, I would roll the end into the plait to keep that nice and neat. If I've just got a little bit at the end, I don't roll it, because I tuck them into the mane as I'm folding or rolling the plait. So it just depends on how much extra mane you've got left. But if you've got a longish mane, you can actually get away with tucking quite a lot into that band as well. So just have a play around to see what works best for your horse as well. Rolling or folding. So this is for the ball plaits. Here you can see that the lady is folded her plaits. I like to roll my plaits. So what is the difference? Folding is literally when you would put the banded end next to the main and then fold the remaining bit in half. Rolling is when you have the banded bit and you roll it on the inside of the hair around, and it depends on what kind of plaits you're trying to achieve. So if you want the plaits to be on top of the mane, and we'll talk about confirmation plaits in a few slides, then it's it's often easier to roll them. So you tuck it round and tuck it under. If you've got quite a lot of mane, then folding is much better. So you put your banded end to the neck, and then you just fold the plait into and then put your other band around. Again, have your bands around your fingers ready to use, and the tension is really key at this stage. So you want to make sure that they're not going to come out, but again, be careful not to pull the hair too tight, because they're probably not going to like it, which is again very understandable. So here we've got to show you the difference. So these are ball plaits. So these are the traditional ones. The ball plait just means that they're in the balls. We never used to have a name for plaits, but now, because we've got lots of different types, then we do. So these have been folded. So these are the ones that the banded end has gone to the neck, and then we folded it back on ourselves. This is done using the silicone bands, and I think you can see the silicone bands more than you can see the traditional bands as well. This has just been done using water, so no products, and it took about 12 minutes to do this. So it was just a quick, to be fair, I'm going to just balance it up and say the bit that you can't see at the top of the screen is where she's missing like a huge chunk of her mane. So it might have taken 15 if she'd have got an extra few plaits in there, but you know, it doesn't, once you get going, it really doesn't take very long to do. You just kind of, it is all about practice, I'm afraid. So time plaiting. Here we've got the rolled plaits. So we can see that these have been plaited quite loosely at the bottom to allow us then to roll the plaits in, and they've been done using thread, so you can't see the bands at all, and they'll be, obviously, because it's done using thread, but I mean, you can't see how they're rolled up. The products use just water again, so nothing fancy. You can see that if you look very closely, the sections at the top are a little bit wider, and the sections at the bottom are wider than the ones in the middle, and that is to make sure that the plait itself, so the ball size, is as even as possible. And these ones are rolled, so even though they've been finished with thread, they were banded to start. So we had bands on the bottom, and then we literally rolled the bands round with the thread and poked the thread around as it goes, so that it has a nice ball effect in there. And that takes about 20 minutes, just because it takes a little bit longer to thread your needle in between each plaiting bit as well. Quite a nice ginger neck there. So this is another style of plaits. So these are folded, done using the bands. So these are like the teardrop plaits. We've got so many different styles now, but you can see here the mane is a little bit longer than the one that we started with. So it's quite a nice way of using that mane, and you can see that the sections are not as thick. So again, we'll come to plaiting for confirmation in a minute, but so these were banded and then folded using a band. So instead of being folded twice, they've just been folded once. So the banded end gets tucked in, and then they just get folded, and then a new band put on, and that takes about 20 minutes. But the reason that takes longer is because there is more plaits. So obviously the longer you have got to spend, the more plaits you can put in, depending on confirmation, which we'll see. Excuse me. Bands versus thread. I've always plaited in bands. except when I'm going anywhere posh, just because I've always plaited with bands, because we've always had so many horses to get ready and it's just a little bit quicker. It really is personal preference, but if I'm honest, the thread does look smarter. I would never dream of going like showing with bands in, you know, personally. If I was working for someone, obviously I wouldn't particularly mind if it was for my own but if I was to turn out something for showing, I wouldn't do that. But it depends as well on when you're plaiting. There's a big debate on when to plait. I always plait on the day of the event, always, just because I kind of think I don't like things in my hair overnight. That's not to say it's wrong at all, because I think there's more people that plait the night before than you know, than plait on the day. And again, it's personal preference, and you know, if your horse is fine with it, then that's fine. It's just because I'm quite quick at plaiting, I just get up kind of 15 minutes earlier and plait. But it definitely is more secure with thread, and if you were plaiting the day before, then thread would be ideal. So we've got as well, you can use a mixture of both, so you can plait down and then band the bottom, and then you just tuck that in, and you can use the thread to get the finished loop. So it's kind of a little bit easier, and it's almost like achieving the finished thread loop but a little bit quicker as well. We can see here on the screen that the whole bit is done with thread, so we use the thread as a band. But I find if the horse starts to move the head and everything else, then you drop your plait, and then it just takes like so much longer. But old-fashioned people and traditional kind of methods, they would absolutely say you should not use bands other than to you know, separate the mane into sections. So again, it's personal preference. I don't think there's any right or wrong wrong reasons. So how to use thread, start the same as when you're plaiting with the band. So make sure your sections are even, focusing on what's kind of hair, the amount of hair that's in each section, rather than the width of the section. Obviously you don't want one to be kind of double the size, but get them as close as you can. I would always say to plait them down and secure with the band. Again, it's up to you whether you have the little bit of hair sticking out or whether you roll them. That is absolute personal choice with there. And then you can keep the band in the end, as we've just said, or you can take that out if you want to do it in the traditional way. So what we do then is we use the needle at the bottom of the plait, so where the band is or wherever the thread is, if you've put that in, and we actually just roll the plait up with the thread. So we take it to the bottom of the neck, and then we just roll it and sew it in. And the achieved effect, the desired effect, is that you can't actually see the thread, which you can't, because you know, it just blends in with the hair anyway. And you can get so many different coloured threads now that you can match your horse's mane quite well. So when you sew them, you want to go through the middle and kind of round the edge, through the middle, round the edge, and then tie them off. But again, it's the preparation that's the key with that, and you can cut the thread. My friend, which I was talking to her today, and I didn't know that you could do this, so she has one massive long piece of thread and one needle, and she bands all of her plaits. So she plaits down, uses band, and then she rolls them. And she literally uses the same piece of thread for every single plait. So it just runs along the neck and then ties the plait up. And then she just goes along and cuts the threads. And I was like, do they not come out? She's like, no, they stay in. So that's quite a cool technique to try. Otherwise, if you want to do it quickly, it's really useful to have someone there helping you and have two different needles. So someone can thread the needle for you. Otherwise, you end up with like heaps of thread, and or you have to keep putting it in. And I don't know about you guys, but I think my eyesight definitely needs a little check, because it's not as easy as it used to be threading the thread through the eye of the needle. So that's a tip for you as well. So yeah, when we're using the thread, we just roll the plaits up. You can fold them again, but we would traditionally roll with the thread, just because it leaves a nicer kind of tighter finish as well. And if you are plaiting up the night before, then it's really worth investing in a lycra hood, just to help keep the plaits in and stop them from getting, you know, rubbed out, or the horse wanting to itch, or getting any shavings or straw or anything like that. And some people put the lycra hoods on just for traveling, to stop any dust going in. Yeah, so that's another good tip as well. Oh, don't know what's going on with my things today. There we go. So plaiting for conformation. We've all got different horses, different shapes and styles, and I often get asked how many plaits. Well, the traditional is 9 or 11, and making it 10 or 12 with the forelock plait as well. I don't think that it really matters, and the dressage kind of grooms and riders, they like quite bigger, chunkier plaits in general. The show jumpers like smaller plaits. So really it doesn't matter, but it can help your conformation. So if you've got a horse that has a really long neck, for example, it's really good practice to put extra plaits in, because it can help just elongate the neck a little bit. And equally, if you have got the other way, where you know, you want to shorten the neck, then put less plaits in as well. We can also help the top line look a little bit more prominent by plaiting on top of the neck. So you'll see all the plaits that we've shown are kind of resting just to the side of the crest, but you can plait on top to give that kind of look that there is a little bit more on the top line. And equally, if you could do a mixture of both. So if your horse has got quite a big crest that's maybe you don't want to draw attention to, you could plait in the same way as this, but then at the wither you could plait on top, and near the poll you could plait on top of the neck, so it just gives a bit of a different shape when the judge is looking. And of course there's lots of different trends as well now. When I was grooming and growing up, there certainly weren't any of the Diamante bands as pictured in this, but they're perfectly acceptable in the dressage, and they're literally just bands that have got little diamantes on that you would put on after you have finished your plaiting, and it just adds a little extra sparkle to your test. Some of us don't need extra sparkle, but I guess some might as well. I sometimes have too much sparkle, unwanted sparkle might I add. So yeah, I've not embraced diamantes yet, but never say never. So here, what to do with half a mane missing. Here is Call the Pie. Here's Chianti. She has the bottom third of her mane missing. It started to grow in, so I'm not that tempted to put any plaits or anything in, because I don't want to do anything that's going to cause any more hair to rub out. Because she's bay, it's a little bit more fortunate because it all kind of blends in. Don't panic, it will grow. Can you really see it? Well, you can if you look, but if you just glanced at the photo, would you have thought, oh my goodness, that horse is missing, you know, half a mane? So my advice is don't worry. But if you are showing, or in a situation where you are worried, you can get, or you can make fake plaits to plait in as well. So as long as you've got a few wispy bits, then you can put some fake plaits in. So you can actually buy those online, or you could make your own. If you pull some mane out, I'm sure you could make your own fake plaits as well. But that is an option if you're really paranoid that your horse is missing half a mane. As you can see by my cheesy grin here, I was not that worried. The mane was the least of our problems, so it's fine. We're still smiling. But it's an interesting concept for I know a lot of the showing people put in fake bits of tail to really help make the tails look fuller, and a pull tail at the top and then a full tail at the bottom really helps to over exaggerate the quarters and the shape of the quarters. So if you're going into showing, then fake plaits and additional tail is definite. It's just like extensions for people, I think. Not that I've ever personally gone down that route, but I think it's similar to what temporary extensions, so for ponies. So if you are needing help, it's definitely worth a little Google and seeing what you're missing out on, I think. So plaiting in 2022, I love this photo from Smart Grooming. It's I'm not sure that there's ever such thing as perfect plaits, but this and the one at the start are pretty close to that. So these are our ball plaits again. These have been done using the thread, and they will have been done using the plaiting wax. And interestingly, on this horse you can see that the mane has been blended into the neck, so you don't get any wispy bits at all where the hair meets the mane either side. So we had another talk actually on blending and clipping, so if you're wondering how to do that, then go back and rewatch that one. But it just means that then you don't get any of the wispy bits. I would say don't cut the wispy bits, especially not if they're the mane, because once you start to cut them, you'll never stop cutting them. Instead, it's much better to use a product to keep them into the plait, so that they will grow out, and they will grow eventually. Even if you cut a little bit of mane, you know, if you're clipping and you've gone a bit close, like, don't worry, just don't keep cutting it, because it will grow definitely. But I think there's quite a lot of pressure over the last few years to be like absolutely amazing at plaiting, because we see all this amazing plaits, and I would say, you know, don't put any pressure on yourself. Practice does make perfect, but equally there's so many tutorials out there, and do some stalking on social media. Baxter Equine Services is a great one to follow. Smart Grooming is another good one to follow. But practice does make perfect. It really is just practice. Yeah, so these are the ball plaits done using the thread. As you can see, you can't see the thread at all, which is the kind of look that we're meant to, you know, we're trying to achieve. But if your plaits don't look like this, please don't worry, because I promise not many people's do. So we're talking about different styles of plaits. So again, when I was growing up, we just had ball plaits, just the traditional ball plaits, that was it. These are called scallop plaits. They are absolutely perfect for longer manes. So we've got here, I don't know if any of you guys know Teddy, who's the little Shetland. So this was a perfect kind of situation to be able to do this. We had to give him a makeover a little while ago in a demo arena, and you look at his mane, and he's obviously a traditional Shetland with lots of mane, and we're like, oh, what could we do with this? So the scallop plait. So the way to do a scallop plait is to start at the top of the mane. So grab your first piece of mane, and you want to plait it as normal. So plait all the way down, and then instead of rolling it, you want to get the end of the plait and push it through the middle. So you push it into the middle, and you can see on the photo on the left that your plait is then poking out of one plait, and then you use that in the middle section of the next plait to plait. So it's like a continuous plait, like all the way down, and it just means that all the hair gets taken in from the mane, and you can see on the one on the left what the desired effect is. It's a really fun one, this, and if you've got a cob, it is absolutely brilliant to be able to do this, or a horse with a longer mane, especially a long thin mane as well. It looks so smart, and it's so easy to achieve. And you can see the one on the left, that's not even used any product or water, and he's quite hairy. This was in winter, and it still looks really cool, especially if you've got a horse with a two-tone mane, and it looks really fun. And some people put different like beads and different bands and things like that in them as well. So, and that's perfectly fine to use for dressage. If you were going into maybe like a working hunter class, then that would be the judge's kind of preference, and I would say stick with your traditional ball plaits. But if you're doing something like, I don't know, jumping and you want to plait, or if you're doing dressage, then these are really, really fun to do. I'm sorry that I tried to do some videos for you guys, but last time we did videos they wouldn't play. So but if anyone wants to kind of contact us, I could maybe do a video and give it to the Horse Tribe ladies, so you can actually like see how to do these, because it's just fun having a go, especially if you have a go when no one else is watching as well. It doesn't matter then if you make a mistake. So that's our scallop plaits, which is becoming more popular in kind of instead of the ball plaits as well. So forelocks. I'm not a big fan of making my forelock too short when we pull. We talk about pulling or humane pulling, shortening, grooming, you know, whatever. I quite like it to be natural, so I quite like the chunky French plait look. So we use a French plait style where we start with a normal plait and then we pull the hair in from the side. So you can make the hair as thick or thin as you like, and we'll look at a thin one on the tail plaits in a moment. But I quite like the chunky feel of it, because and actually if you're using an ear bonnet you don't even need to plait anymore. I know lots of people are into using the we used to call them fly masks, but now they're ear bonnets, especially the ones that are sound kind of proofing as well. You don't need to plait the forelock, but again, make sure it's firm but it's not too tight, because tradition again says that they're more sensitive here, so maybe don't do that too tight. So but I think chunky looks quite cool. There's a new technique that has recently just hit kind of social media as well. So instead of using the bands, we use the band at the very bottom, but then instead of securing it in the ball with the band, you just poke the end of the plait back through the plait that you've done. And because usually it's quite a long forelock plait, it just holds itself there. So we just use a pair of special kind of forceps scissors that you can get. Smart Grooming sell those as well, obviously. So if you want to do it without a band or thread, then that's a super quick and easy way of doing that as well. So we've got two different styles. We've got French versus Dutch. So traditionally, I've always plaited French, which is where you pull the hair over each other, so it's crossed over when plaiting. The bottom is a Dutch, so instead of crossing the hair over when you plait, you bring it under. And it's and the thought is that the plait then sits a little bit more prominent out. And both these examples, you can see what I mean. Instead of the other one, instead of them having a band, the end has just been pulled back into the plait as well. That's done using the scissors, and it just gives a bit of a straighter look. So again, it just depends on what kind of look you're you're after. Would just add as well that these photos were taken a few years ago before the FEI ruling came in about trimming inner ear hair, so we wouldn't see inner ear hair that's been removed now at FEI level. But that's just something I noticed when I was getting the photos. I was like, it's funny how things change and evolve as we, even in a few years, especially with plaiting. It's developed in so many ways. So don't think I've been shaving inner ear hair. I promise I have not. Tails, wow, this is not my tail. I've got a confession to make. I'm really bad at plaiting tails. I plait quite well in the chunky French plait style, but this is French plaiting, but it's very thin, and they're pulling very thin bits at the end just to get that nice kind of laddered effect. I think it looks amazing. And here they've done the bottom of the tail up. That's for a hunting day. We would normally leave the bottom of the tail just kind of natural and down. And don't forget, if this scares you, don't forget that you don't always have to plait to look smart. We've got other techniques we can use, but I think I'm going to go and try this because I found this photo and thought, wow, that's very, very impressive. So it's done in the same way. So we start at the top with the 3 bits, and then we just bring bits in at a time. And the key with these ones is making sure that each bit you bring in from the side is even, and you do need quite a lot of tension on these, especially the tail plaits, to keep them nice and tight at the top, because obviously the horses move the tails and then there's scope for them to pop out, which you don't want. And I would say use some gel or wax as well if you can, on that too. But that looks very, very impressive. But as we say, you don't always have to plait to look smart. We've got creative plaiting. So here we've just bought, this is another one of Nikki Baxter's. She's just brought the bits in from the top, put a tiny kind of pearl type thing, use the bits at the bottom, and it's just pulled it in from the side, and you can see that it's a really effective way and a creative way of doing something different, something fun. And don't forget, a lot of horses have pulled tail or humanely pulled tails as well to shape the bum. So the tail plaits are really there to shape the bum and to show the quarters off, but it's not essential. If you've got a horse that's a little bit kind of less liking you to be, you know, faffing around with their tail, then don't get yourself hurt. But there's lots and lots of things that we can do with the tails. But I saw that and I thought, oh, that's quite a fun thing to add in as well. So top tips: preparation is honestly the most important thing, making sure that you've got your sections as even as you possibly can do, so not on the width but on how much hair is in each section, because that makes a difference to your actual plait. Give yourself lots of time. You know, we've looked at those that have taken 12 minutes, but don't forget how many horses I've kind of plaited in my time, and just practice, and don't forget to experiment. So, you know, don't leave it until, I don't know, the day before to think that you're going to have to get the horses ready and the mane ready and everything else. Make sure that it's at a length that you like. So if your horse has got a thicker mane, you might want it a little bit longer, and then you might want to experiment with your scallop plaits. And if it's thicker and longer, you might want to put more in so that your balls aren't massive. And remember, when you're plaiting as well, it's the tension that really makes a difference. So you don't want them to be too tight at the base. You want them, but after you've done the first couple, you definitely, like first couple of turns on your plaiting, you definitely want them as tight as possible. And don't be afraid to experiment. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it should be fun. And if they need a hay net or a lick or anything like that, then absolutely, you know, it's fine to do that. But I think this photo for me sums up pretty much. So these are scallop, and it just sums up, yeah, this is perfect plaiting. Again, not mine, but you know, I saw it and I thought I can't compare with that, so I'll just pop that one in. But that is not a look that's taken 12 or 20 minutes to achieve. You know, that's taken quite a lot of time. So it depends on how much of a perfectionist you are and how much time you have. This mane would have probably been about 3 inches long to start, and of a what we would call like a medium thickness, so nothing too bushy and too crazy as well. And finally, it's question time. So you can pop your questions on the chat, or I don't know if Heidi or Thea can hear. Can you hear the ladies if they actually ask questions? Or
You can raise your hand if you want to ask a question live, or if you could type in the Q&A, it just makes it easier for us to find it. So bottom of your screen in the Q&A, if you can type there. I was going to ask Liz how long you thought that lovely scalloped plait would take.
Oh, so long. It's, yeah, definitely. You can scallop plait in, like, when I scallop plait, I do it in the same amount of time that I would do my ball plaits in. But that one that I can go back, I think I can go back. My thing's not working. No, I can't go. Oh, maybe. Yeah, I mean, that is taken, I don't know. I'll ask Nikki. I'd say a good hour plus.
That is beauty, isn't it? It really is a thing of beauty.
It's stunning. It is absolutely stunning, and it's a total talent. But I also want to say that nobody expects your plaits to be like that. Like, people shouldn't feel put off by thinking, oh my goodness me, like I can't plait. But equally at the same time, I like to recognize when people do something amazing, and I think that is absolutely amazing, isn't it? It's incredible.
Absolutely. I always wonder when you're doing dressage, even if it's unaffiliated, I always wonder what percentage good plaits add to your mark. It's kind of a subconscious thing, isn't it?
Yeah, I actually asked a dressage judge, and I won't name him, but I said, you know, when we're very lucky in Scotland, and sometimes we have like dressage of an evening, but people are coming from work and everything else, and I always plait because I do it quickly, but they're not always a thing of beauty. They're just plaits, if you know what I mean. But I said, does it really make a difference? And he was like, absolutely, you know, it shouldn't, but it does, because it just shows a little bit of respect, and it shows that you care that little bit more to have plaited. I was like, well, even if your horse's mane is amazing without plaiting. And he's like, yeah, it's like, it doesn't mean that you're going to get more or less marks. He said, but it just, for him, it adds to the overall picture and the overall kind of desire to be there. And I was like, oh, I will forever now plait before I go, even if it's unaffiliated, because I would never turn up for a lesson without a hairnet. And I guess that's the same thing. Does it make my horse go any better? No, but you know, I guess it's a sign of like you've made an effort, isn't it? So, which is probably silly, but traditional.
Yeah,
we've got a question from Lynn that I'll ask you. So she says, I've got a Connemara gelding who's a lovely wavy mane, not thick but quite long. I'd like to keep his mane longer, so what type of plait would you suggest?
Oh, the scallop plaits will be amazing for that, especially if it's not too thick. Yeah, they will be absolutely lovely. So just go through the same process. So you start at the top, do your first plait, and then you just poke it through and it comes up, and that plait, the end of the plait, then joins your next plait, and it's just a continuation all the way down. It looks really funky as well, especially if there's a few colours going through the mane, because with the Connemara they tend to, as they change in colour from that lovely dark grey, they tend to then get lighter, and it looks absolutely amazing when they've got all the highlights and the different colours. So yeah, scallop plaits would definitely be a good. I was wondering, I should ask you this off air, but I'll put you on the spot. If I was to video that, would you have like a platform that then people could go in and watch?
We can put it alongside your webinar, so absolutely, that would be brilliant, because I think that would really bring it to life.
Yeah, because last time we used the videos, they didn't I don't know if it's my Wi-Fi, but it didn't work, and it did, so I was like, oh, it's needing that. So actually, hopefully, yeah, well, I'll do that, and then we'll do a traditional ball plait, and then we'll do a scallop plait, so you guys can see the difference, and you can go and have I can't promise it'll look like Nikki's amazing chestnut on the screen before, but
yeah, if you do that, then we can add that to we can send that out to everybody who's signed up, so they can have that video as well. That'd be amazing. Yeah,
Charlotte has said some video would be amazing, thanks. So yeah, she's giving you the thumbs up on that one. Definitely.
No problem, Charlotte, we'll definitely do that. That would be fun to do.
And there's a good question here from Laura Hopkins. This would be interesting. So what is your opinion on pulling? I guess that's mains, not going out on
the time.
I'm well past that. I turned 40 last weekend. Now
you've hit the big 4-0. You're past
big 4-0, yeah. That's it.
So what's your opinion on pulling? And there's a little bit more. Do you think with modern, more humane tools like solo comb, it will eventually be phased out like whisker and ear trimming?
I think that is a brilliant question, and like most people that have been in the industry for a long time, I have pulled manes. I stopped pulling tails when I don't even know how many years ago, but Vicky from Smart Grooming, I was working as a journalist, and she sent me the smart rakes, which are the humane rakes that you use to, we say pull the tails, but to trim the tails. And I've never ever pulled a tail since, and the reason for that is I've never ever had a horse that hasn't reacted to having the tail pulled. So for me, I'm like, it's obviously sore, you know, that. So, and there's a way around that where when you're not plaiting, it doesn't matter. With my horses, we've got one that has sweet itch. She never ever has a mane pull, because I don't want to ever kind of make her itchy, make her sore. So she was the chestnut on the on one of the first slides. She never gets a mane pulled. We just humanely do that. I've got another horse that's got a big bushy mane, and what I do is pull tiny bits out, but on a weekly basis. So it's just, but most of it is the thinning scissors. And again, I'm a massive fan of I'm not advocating the rakes. There's lots of other things, but I really like using the rakes. And another one would actually kill me if I tried to pull her mane, but I think I wouldn't like my hair pulled out, so I don't blame you at all. They're all mares, which I do think makes a difference. They seem to be more sensitive. But the answer to your last question is, yeah, I absolutely do think that it will be phased out, and I am very pro the whisker kind of change as well. Again, I would trim whiskers if they were getting caught in tack, or like especially around the eyes, if they're getting caught in the cheek pieces. But when I mean trim them so they don't get caught. And I would never kind of clip in at ears and things like that. So yeah, I think it is going that way, and I will welcome that change as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And in terms of pulling manes and tails, you did a webinar for us a while ago with showing people how to use the humane tools as well. So that might be worth a little.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think there'll always be the exception to the rule where you've got something that has just got a ridiculously thick mane and, you know, doesn't mind being pulled. But I worked on a yard very early on, and the lady pulled to the point where it made, like, you could see the blood, and I was like, that's just not me. That's not why I have a horse, like, at all. You know, I want, as I said at the beginning, it's like I want it to be fun for all, and that includes, you know, includes the horse as well. So but equally, I wouldn't report someone to the RSPCA if I saw them pulling a mane. But yeah, I think when you have to twitch horses to do things, that probably says like enough, and that's a whole other topic, isn't it? I'm opening up a can of worms now. I'll move on to the next question. I'm getting into trouble.
well, to cheer you up, Lynn says thank you for the answer before, because he is completely grey most of the time with a touch of poo green. I think we all know a horse that's a touch of poo green sometimes, don't we?
Definitely. You need some Daz in your life, or some purple shampoo, yeah, and a lot of elbow grease for greys.
Definitely. Question from Vanessa. So again, on to thinning manes and so on. So what's the correct way to use thinning scissors to thin thick parts of the mane and to obtain an even length overall? I.e., do you cut up into the mane vertically or use the scissors horizontally along? Good question.
So for thin, where they're thin, I go horizontally. Where it's thick, I go vertically. I'm thinking, yeah, vertically, sorry. I was like thinking which way is which. Yeah, I go on an angle vertically, but never go too high, because otherwise the top bits will bring wispy bits in the top of your plaits. So you want to probably aim for, I don't know, like 1 centimetre, 2 centimetres. So when you plait, then if you want to be really strategic, don't plait all the way to the bottom. Instead, use the balling technique at the bottom, where you fold the ends into the plaiting band. Otherwise you'll get little wispy bits coming out. But yeah, I absolutely, for thick manes, would use the thinning scissors at an angle along. And the mane rakes are quite good for taking out quite a lot of the bulk as well.
And Liz, just to be clear, for those that don't know what a thinning scissor is, they're kind of like every other, kind of serrated.
Yes, yeah, so they've got lots of teeth on them, and all the teeth are serrated. So you can get some that are serrated just one side and not the other. Mine are, I don't know why I got sent them, if I'm honest, and they work brilliantly, so I've kept them. They're serrated both sides, and it just means instead of getting the really straight look, that it gives a slightly more natural, rather than a totally straight line, a bit of a more naturally straight line. But yeah, I still use them kind of vertically on an angle when I'm doing the manes as well.
Yeah, that's
some
really
good questions tonight, isn't
Yeah,
there?
good questions, aren't
Done,
they?
people.
I have to say the smart grooming rate changed my life, because I wasn't very good at tails at all, so I just give up and would have like a bog brush. I know, because I'm not as good. Heidi's really good. I know you said earlier that you're not that good at plaiting, but Heidi is like a massive level above me. Her tail plaiting is really awesome.
I'm all right at tail plaiting. My mane takes some getting. Yeah,
Yeah,
work.
It's funny. I'm the other way around. Like I like doing the chunky plait, like the chunky French plait in the tail. I think that looks really good. But the grey that we showed, that's like, oh my god, like I just don't have the patience, I don't think, to do, like, that's an insane level of dedication, and there's no way like my horse would stand for that long. She would start to ask questions like, what are you doing to my bum? And she just wouldn't think that's okay. So yeah, the rakes are just brilliant, especially for the tails as well. I honestly, a game changer. There's a few products that I've had along through my career that, like, yeah, hot clothing, revolutionary. The smart rakes, complete game changer. You know, you get these little nuggets occasionally, and the smart rakes is definitely one of them. So invest, people, and you get your discount code, don't you, as well?
Yeah, so in a minute we'll share that with you, but we have another question from Laura. So my mare always has wispy bits on the top of her mane. I'm fascinated to know this answer as well. I have never pulled it or cut it. Any tips for getting those bits to grow out?
Oh my goodness.
I think that's just new hair growth. I remember saying we're comparing my hair with a horse's hair now. I remember saying to my hairdresser, look, my hair's just splitting. She's like, no, it's just new growth. Don't worry.
Yeah. So we shared, don't we, like annually, because I didn't know this until I started losing my hair a few years ago, and I was like, what's going on? And we shared annually and then get these kind of wispy bits as well. The answer to that is, honestly, I don't know, but if you're plaiting, use gel, because it will change your life. If we were saying with the tail, we'd say to trim regularly, but with your wispy bits of mane, we don't obviously really want to trim them very regularly. But you could plait down, so you can put stable plaits in, so it's just the same as plaiting down, but make sure they're loose, and then you could start to train your bits, the wispy bits over as well. Or if they're really annoying and really close to where the hair is, you could blend. That's on a different webinar. You could blend them in if they're it would depend how long they are. If they're just kind of a centimetre, then I would maybe be tempted to blend it into the hair. But if they're a bit longer, then you could put them into the plait with some gel or wax.
Super.
Perfect.
Brilliant. Shall we share our slides so that we can share? Because our lovely friends at Smart Grooming have given us another discount code for all of their plaiting products.
There we
Have
go.
you got them, or do you want me to share?
I can share those.
Yeah, cool. So
we got that?
Yeah, so from today until the end of May, if you use code HFEST02 at checkout, cunningly titled, you get 10% off any products in their plaiting section. So go, make yourself happy and the Smart Grooming friends happy.
So that'll include your plaiting gel and
your bands and
the wax as well. Yeah, if you're going for thread, the wax is a life changer. The wax thread, yeah.
Brilliant, great stuff, fantastic. So that's on the so everybody's got that. If you need that again, just let us know. And then we've got a few more webinars coming up, obviously. So next one's the 12th of May. So that's Catherine Nankervis, who's in sort of an academic, but approaches her academic sort of life, I guess, from a very practical point of view. And her expertise is all around horse fitness, and she works with a lot of really high level horses and fitness at a really top level. But she's coming to this at more of a leisure rider level and saying, right, what actually as a leisure rider do you need to do to get your horse fit enough? And when I was chatting to her about this webinar, it was really fascinating, and I won't spoil it, but some of the things that we really think you have to do, the research says you don't, and it's actually really, really interesting. So she's going to be busting the myths of horse fitness. Can't wait for that. Then Ray Erasmus is on the 19th of May now. Theo found Ray. I don't know if you want to say, do you want to say a little bit more about him, because he's fabulous.
Yeah, it's a bit like I trekked around South Africa and I bumped into this chap. I did. He's going to be live from South Africa. He's really amazing. He found us actually through social media. He really liked what we did and our ethos and our values, and so we messaged him a bit through social media. And then we had a chat with him, and he's just an incredible guy. Not only is he a safari guide, so he takes people out on horses and he trains horses to deal with really significant situations for a horse, you know, dealing with lions being in the bush, etc. But he's also really, really curious about how to solve problems with horses, about how to train horses to deal with anything. And he's created a system of training that works for horses being faced with lions. So it can pretty much work with anything, even that plastic bag in the hedge, I reckon.
I was thinking it might help me next time I come across a wheelie bin on its side, which
I reckon.
Really quite scary.
Yeah, lion versus wheelie bin, I reckon it's going to work. So he's really
excited about him, and he's such a lovely sort of compassionate horse person as well. Really well read, knows loads, so we can't wait for seeing him. And then we've got Justine Harrison on the 9th of June. So unfortunately Justine was unwell a couple of weeks ago and had to cancel her webinar, so that's been rescheduled now for the 9th of June. So the next thing's coming up. So yeah, thanks guys. Thank you, Liz. It's been fabulous. Have we got any more questions, or are we through all of our questions? I think we're through, aren't we?
Yeah, and we will email out when this recording is uploaded onto the website. And remember, there's a building library of webinars on there that you can watch back on demand. So if you're a free member, you can buy any of them and watch any of them anytime. And if you're a gold member, you can watch any of them as part of your monthly fee. And Liz features in at least 4 others.
Lucky you.
Yeah, you can binge. We'll have a box set that people can binge over a weekend soon, won't we, with you, Liz?
Yeah, poor people.
And we've got a thank you there from Charlotte, and she's inspired to keep trying to improve her golf balls, so that's brilliant. Glad to hear it. Thank you, Charlotte.
No, it is just practice, isn't it? And practicing with the width of the plaits as well. It's just, yeah, another one of those joys of horse owning. It's yeah, practice.
Absolutely.
One last thing to say, guys, before you go, is that Heidi and I are busy. It's getting really full the rest of the year and through autumn and winter now. We're building up more webinars with more amazing experts. So if you have any ideas of things that you'd be really passionate to see and hear about, do let us know. Message us, email us at hello@horsefest.org. Get in touch.
Yeah, and also if you fill it, you've got the questionnaire will come up at the end of the webinar, and there's a space in that. If you don't answer anything else, if you just want to jot in anything that you'd like to see in the future, then we go and search out the great people to deliver it. So thank you. Thanks, Liz.
Thank you for having us again.
No worries. See you soon.
Yeah, see you soon. See you, everybody. Have a nice rest of the evening. Bye.
Bye.